we just get some challenge with these children. The talk would not make them pay attention seriously when you talk. So maybe you give them one and two tap.
No, no, that's wrong. Licks not could never been picture and licks just make sure and get more bad.
Yes, I think sometimes, because if you spare the rod and spoil the child, you, the parents, will suffer in the end. I'm not saying that you must abuse them, but I think that would, enlighten them and let them know how serious you are um, with them.
Definitely, because I say I do give my son a few lashes because it benefited me when I was young, and it made me the man that I am today, and not just a man, but a man that can actually bring up his son in the right way. So licks do benefit.
I came from a Christian background, and according to the Bible says, "Spare not the rod and spoil the child." So, do what is right by scolding them, or giving them a few lashes or something, or disciplining them in whatever area, you know, it will benefit them, because from that alone they will be able to know that what they're doing is wrong, and they can learn from that.
No, I don't think leaks benefits no one, especially children.
Good evening, viewers, and welcome to Step by Step, a parenting program brought to you by the Child Rights Alliance. My name is Asani Tini, and I will be the moderator for this evening's discussion. The topic this evening is beating our children. Is it control or correction? Now, corporal punishment, or licks as we all know it, is commonly practiced today in Guyana. And you would have just seen the video with some parents sharing their views on licks. Now, most Guyanese parents strongly advocate for this method of discipline. However, more and more parents, as well as civil society organizations, are advocating for nonviolent forms of discipline. Tonight, we want to explore this issue a bit. With me in the studio, I have a panel of professionals and a few parents as well. I'll now give our panel and parents an opportunity to tell us something about themselves. Beginning with my right.
I'm Taisha Perry, project coordinator with ChildLink, specifically focusing on the child advocacy program, and I'm a mother of two.
I'm Natasha Karika. I work at the Ministry of Communities as a community development officer, and I'm a social worker.
Hi, I'm Melanie Hilleman, a proud educator at the St. Barnabas Special School, and I'm the mother of one.
Hi, good evening. I'm Shelley Benny. I'm a mother of four, a wife, and I've just completed the child parent program, and I've learned a lot.
Good night, my name is Andel Higgins. I'm a father of one, and I work with young people at a youth group, and I'm very excited to be here on this topic here.
Great. I'm happy that you're all here with us. Now let's get straight down to business. First question. Why do we find it easier to use our hands instead of our voice? Why do we find it easier to use our hands instead of and not our voice?
All right. I think for us in our society, beating, beating has become a culture. It's basically a tradition that has been handed down from our generations. Our parents beat us, their parents beat them, their parents' parents beat them. So it's basically a tradition, and now today we have a generation of persons who feel that beating is right. It's easier because it's a culture, like everything else that's a culture or a tradition that passed down to us. It's easy, it's the first thing that comes to mind. When someone will say, okay, speak to the child, we know hitting out, we know lashing. And for me, it's very easy because it has become a way of life. It has become a way in which we communicate. We communicate to our children, not with our words, but with our hands.
Just adding to Kaisha's point, indeed, I believe that the issue of verbal communication has been a challenge for parents. How do we engage children in communicating with them verbally and to discuss and address sensitive issues? And so the easiest thing to do sometimes is for us to hit, because we feel like that sends a stronger message. And in communication, sometimes as parents, because I'm a parent of three, you find that you feel challenged, because if you're going to be communicating verbally, it gives that child the opportunity to speak back and talk back to you. And that's something, if we're not mentally prepared for and psychologically prepared for, when a child talks back, how do I respond? So in other words, if I can use my hands, we tend to feel it sends a stronger message. This child know that I'm serious. And so that for us is what I believe causes to hit rather than talking, rather than getting to understand why is this behavior there. The hitting gives us that we feel like we're in control when we hit. So it becomes easier to hit because you feel, if I hit, this child know that I'm serious. This child know that you're not allowed to do that. So and I find in our culture that parents live in homes with children. They don't communicate with them. They don't know what is happening in that child's life. They don't know what the activities of their children are. So communication, I believe, has been a very big challenge for us as parents. I'm talking in Guyana, where we're not communicating, but rather we hit, and we think that's the strongest message we can send. The child gets to understand the seriousness of what I'm doing.
For me, I think I would want to go with frustration. Many parents are frustrated, and as a result of frustration, they react. Whether it has to do with bills that has to pay, whether it has to do with the work environment that they're in, they're so frustrated. So when a child do something, they vent that frustration onto the child. So the child feels the bitterness of their frustration, right? Just recently, I was in one of the parenting session, and a parent was sharing from her personal experience what licks has done to her. And she's old enough where she's married. She had her own family, but she's still timid about over her mother. She's fearful of her mother, the amount of licks that her mother gave to her, and since she was a child. I believe, and I can share from my personal experience, I remember giving eye contact and clearing my throat. And from that, my son got the message. My niece and my nephew, they grew up under my supervision. They got the message. And as I said earlier, I'm a proud educator at the St. Barnabas Special School, and my students knows the eye. So from the eye, they know that, okay, this is it. That's it.
Okay. So I'll give our parents an opportunity to chime in.
I want to suggest patience. Parents at times don't have patience. If it's going to take a longer time for me to sit down and talk with you about something, rather than for me just raise my hand. If I just raise my hand or give you the eye or give you the look, you already know where I'm coming from, right? So as a child, my mother is a serious woman, all right? And sometimes she talks a lot to us, but as a parent, you got to keep talking over and over, and I'm able to talk over and over. So as soon as I give you that eye and I raise my hand, the work is done quickly. So I think parents would apply that more than talking, because it's working. But however, it's driving fear into the children, and that is not what we want.
Okay.
As for me, I'm gonna say I used to think that licks is everything, but then for the past 8 weeks, I've learned different. It's beating a child doesn't solve the problem. It just drives fears into them. And I might think they're listening, but then if I sit and I look, I'll see they go back and do the same thing in a very short time. So from now on, what I does is I speak to them, let them know what they've done is wrong, and try to correct them every time they slip, instead of just putting lashes, because lashes is not all.
Okay, and just to ask, which do you find is more effective?
I used to think lashes, but no. talking to them is better.
I think if you a little tough, a little tough.
A
you know,
little
and
tough.
if I'm talking to you, I'm telling you, listen, Jerry, don't touch that. Jerry, don't touch that. He touches it. Next time you touch it, and then lash your point on. He's gonna think I'm joking because remember now, it depends on the age of the child. You want to show love and compassion, and every time you get a child, you hug, and wherever the child does, it's all cute and nice. There's a time you got to be serious. So after constantly talking, then you have to show that hey, I'm serious. If I say don't touch it, don't touch it. So I'm not saying or get a belt and no. I'm just saying a little touch. Just let you know that I'm serious.
Oh, so for me, now for me, this whole issue of the saying don't touch it or don't do it doesn't mean that you have communicated with the child and to the child, because I can tell you don't do something, and in the back of your head you're wondering
Why?
why.
We often tell them the why.
The why has not yet been established, and humans are curious people. Even when we know the why factor, we still test it out to see if the why. And so the whole of saying that if I say don't touch it, don't do this, don't do that, and they still do it, that requires lashes. For me, from my experience, I was beaten as a child, but as an adult and as a mother, what stuck with me are the times when my mother communicated, and I can look back now and I can hear her voice. Oh, that's why she used to say this, and I can understand now. And that communication, I can now relate to it, and I have an understanding. But the beating for me, I was beaten. I saw my siblings being beaten, and what that did for me, I felt like my mother was cruel. I felt like this woman had no feelings for me, because the beating sometimes, I got beat for stuff that I didn't do. And I wish that my mother would have, I remember once one of my sisters stole something, and I was burning Barbies. But my sister was downstairs with my mom, left, came upstairs, made the mischief, went downstairs back, and myself and another sister, we were upstairs all the time. So when my mom came, she thought it was my older sister, and I had this way, if my mother hit my siblings, I would cry all the time. So she felt like I was covered. I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't want my sister to get licked. But she didn't even ask, and she did what she had to do. She went, she had some water. I was a child, and she burnt my fingers and my sister's fingers. And she did not communicate. She did not find out. Long after we were grown, my other sister acknowledged that, you know what, it was I who came upstairs and thieved the fried fish and went downstairs back. But my mother, the whole communication process of finding out where were you, what happened, how the fish is missing. And oftentimes we feel that we have to take these drastic measures of hitting. And I'm saying, for me, I find like hitting the children, it really affected my relationship. It does. And even when you get older, as much as you might love your parents and you look back on the quote unquote and you said it worked for you, if you want to be truly honest, there were at some point in your life where you're thinking, you had thoughts about your parents. Some of us wish that they had died. Some of us wish that we
weren't born in that family.
That we weren't born in that family. Some of us couldn't wait to be 18 to get out. And all of these things were going on in our head, all because of the beatings. But we endured it. Thank God some of us are still okay today. But to say that it's the best way to discipline, I would beg to differ. I think we need to communicate more, talk with our children. If we be a society that is communicating more with our children, we will have an understanding, because behind every act or behavior, there is some issue that needs to be addressed. And that's what we need to get. What is the underlying issue? And Sigmund Freud said it, that we need to go back to those past experiences. Behaviors are based on past experiences. And sometimes I remember my son, I have my eldest son, he grew up, he was like at 5, and David had a hard time writing his name. And I was beating this child because his sister at age 2+ was already writing. But I found out that at the time of his conception, his dad was in marijuana, which the whole medical thing that tells you how they can be slow or whatever. And I had a hard time, like, why David can't write his name properly at 5? And sometimes children get beat in school for not writing and not doing stuff, and there are underlying issues that licks cannot address. So it's important if you're communicating and finding out and getting all the information, it helps.
Yes, the issue about the why, it's very important because we have a program with children, youth ambassadors, who give their views on these same topics, and they were asked, does licks burn and cool? And they said they would get licks, go and do the same thing, because a lot of times they don't understand why they're getting licks.
That's right.
So that's a very important
Why
point.
factor, yes.
I just wanted to add the beating as opposed to talking. At the end of the day, you still have the behavior. So you beat me today, you will be able to beat me tomorrow. You beat me tomorrow, you beat me the next day. It doesn't change my behavior. You do not understand why I skipped school. You do not understand why I don't want to eat. You don't understand why I can't write at this age. Because you're not asking a question, you're not talking to me and explain to me the importance of me not doing these things or do something. And at the end of the day, we have a society that is full of children and even adults who continue this behavior, and you're making our children fearful, we're making them timid, that even when an issue arises that they need to defend themselves, they don't, because they were trained and conditioned to just accept what comes. In spite of you not doing something, you accept the lashes. You accept the bad words that come to you without saying, I did not do that. Because we're training them, we're conditioning them.
Yeah, sometimes we forget that children learn mainly from example, not so much from words. So when a bigger person, a parent, the stronger one, beats the little child, that is sending a message that it's okay for a stronger person to pick on a weaker person. So we're seeing a lot is coming out from this discussion, but we're just going to take a brief break. So please don't touch that dial, remain with us. We'll be right back.
Very sad. It's very sad.
I feel sad from not doing the right things.
I feel sad and unhappy when I get licks.
Sad and angry.
Bad for doing the wrong things.
I feel bad because I get licks for a reason.
I feel sad and hurt, but I also know that my parents are trying to protect me and make sure that I get things right.
Bad because I did the wrong thing.
I feel sad when I receive licks.
Feel sad because I didn't do the right thing that I supposed to do.
I feel bad because I did the wrong thing.
Angry and sad at the same time.
Bad.
Sad. Bad because it hurts my feelings.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Step by Step, a parenting program brought to you by the Child Rights Alliance. Our topic this evening, again, beating our children. Is it control or correction? So the next question I want to ask, what purpose does beating serve? Again, what purpose does beating serve? Is it a matter of control or is it a means to correct?
Beating definitely is control. If you want to correct, you give instructions, you give guidance, you give information that would change a behavior or change a pattern. And when someone beat, they're basically trying to control that thing or that person in whom they feel is out of control. We often look in our society today, we have domestic violence on the increase. Every other day or so, you open a newspaper, you listen to the news, somebody died, somebody was stabbed, something happened. And we're not connecting the dots to see that we are teaching our children violence. We're teaching our children violence, and we're teaching them to submit to violence. We often hear of women staying in situations, even though they were brutalized, but why so? They would have been conditioned. They know what it is for mommy and daddy to beat me, and I'm still there. I'm not saying anything, I'm not complaining, And even sometimes I'm blaming myself. I did something. I stole the fish. I didn't know to write. Whatever it is, you're blaming yourself. So it is our adults today. Yes, you may say beating help you, but what did it do to you at that time? How did it condition you as an adult now that you're going to look at a nice little innocent face because they made a mistake, however small it is, and you're lashing out at them with a belt or whatever you grab your hands on. Some people may say you give them little lashes, but little lashes turn out to grabbing this and hit because you're in that moment. Your heart is racing and the adrenaline just rise up, and you whatever comes to your hand you can hit because you're practicing. So we need to really look at the connecting dots in all of this, beating our children and what it does to our society, what it does to our children when they are grown, and our society continues in this cycle of violence.
Yes, anyone else? What purpose does beating serve? Is it a matter of control or correction?
I would go for control because when I analyze control, it would say being in charge. I'm in charge, and whatsoever I say goes. In the movie Matilda, I am big, you're small. I'm right, you're wrong. That's what she said, and there's nothing you can do about it. Some of us parents have that kind of perception. So the child has no opportunity of saying anything or defending their action. I remembered as a child, my brother and I were playing, and if it's one thing children like to display. And we're playing in the yard, and my grandmother spoke to us once. She told us to stop. She spoke to us twice. She told us to stop. And the next thing I knew, a knife came to my head. When I catch myself, blood was running down my head. She did not come outside to us. She did not. No, she pelt a knife at me. Oftentimes, parents believe that, okay, if I'm in charge, and when I say something, you have to hear me. But then we don't take the time off to actually investigate, to allow the child to just explore. Leave them, let them play, let them solve their own problem, and then if it comes to the point whereby you need to sit them down and come to a solution, is fine. I know what the Bible says, and I strongly believe what the Bible says, right? But then at the same time, licks has come to a place where it's come an abuse. It becomes abuse. Not only is it physical, it becomes also you're getting verbal abuse, because sometimes when we're so frustrated, we use all form of indecent language. Now when we use these terms to these children, they have pent-up anger start to build up. The child goes into his or her room. Sometimes they cry themselves to sleep because of, but when they reach into adulthood now, you start to see a ripple effect of their childhood experience into their adulthood. And their innocent child or niece, nephew, who left in daycare, getting that ripple effect. Now it's innocent victims feeling what you started.
I would say yes. It's more control than correction, because we talk about correction, we talk about discipline and how we need to discipline. And when I studied the word discipline, it came from the word disciple, which means to teach and to train. And when you're teaching, you're constantly giving instructions and guidelines. And training is a lifetime. And teaching is a life. It's a lifetime. And so we constantly learning. And so if you're going to say that you're going to discipline, it's continuous, and you move from one level to the next. Like you're in school, you're at kindergarten, and then you keep going and you keep going. And so as parents, I think we use this word of discipline and correction, but when we're beating our children, it's more of a control, because it's me saying I'm the one with the power. And because I have the power, what I say goes, and this is what should happen. And if you're not doing it, then I've got to make it happen. And if beating you is going to subdue and cause you to comply, then I would beat. And I find like, if I'm telling you, it's more of the whole controlling. And we feel that when we beat, that it says that I'm the one with the authority. It says that I'm in charge. It says that I have the power. I can show you that I have the power. And, our colleague talked about just now, but, it doesn't mind the tapping, but how long do you tap? Would you tap a 13-year-old? No. Would you tap a 15-year-old? No. So it gradually changes, it moves and it escalates to a point where children are bruised and their physical scars, but those physical scars sometimes goes away, but what about the emotional and psychological scars that are there that doesn't go away? And so we beat our sons, and then sometimes we place our sons to beat their younger sisters. But when he becomes a man, you're telling him it's wrong to beat his wife. When he was okay, when his mom or dad say, listen, beat your sister, if she's acting out, put some lash in that girl. So it becomes okay. If it's natural for me to hit my sister, it's natural for me to hit a woman that I marry. So when they grow up now, when we see them act out in society, we disconnect ourselves from those behaviors. It's like, I don't know where he get that from. He didn't learn that in the home, when we are the ones who expose them to the violence in the home. Because he grows up, he become a husband, and if I grow up seeing my parents beat me to get me to do, men who beat their wives or girlfriends, they tell you, no longer I talking to this girl. She ain't hearing, so I had to top show up, I had to put some lash in her. Because as a child, when mommy and daddy talks after a while and you don't get it, you got to get top up. And so when they're growing now, when we see the violence in society, we don't want to be identified with it. We disconnect ourselves. And so it's more of control. The men will beat to control the woman, and we as parents beat to control our children.
I'd like to think, sorry, but I want to lean more to the correction part. I don't think that originally the links was for correction. But some parents, we can't handle frustration. Either we're frustrated from a job, the bills to pay, we're not getting any money to pay the bills, there's no food there. We come home frustrated. The child does just one simple thing, and that gets you back to your pressure pot. That one single thing there blows you away, and you look for the weakest link to take out your frustration on. And that's what most parent does. They look for the child, and the child can't fight back. Some children can, some children don't fight. But some children, certain ages, they fight. They can't fight back with the parent, and they take it out on them, and they take out the whole frustration on that child. So if you're gonna do any lick, I'm saying it's for correction, not for control.
It should be for correction.
It should be for correction, not for control. And once you're going along that road for correction, I think there's certain measures that you as a parent should use.
I wanted to go back. Somebody mentioned about spare the rod, spoil a child. I have come to believe, I don't think that was meant literally for the rod to be used to hit a child, to leave marks on a child. In the Bible, what was the rod used for? To guide the sheep as they go astray, come back in.
Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me.
Not get them, and we need to understand as we interpret our religious materials. Jesus said, suffer the little children to come unto me. He bring them. When his disciple wanted them to go away, what he did, he accepted them. He said, bring them. And when we hit our children, we are pushing them away. It's destroying the relationship we have with them. It's destroying them as human beings. They're not learning to communicate. They're not learning to problem solve. So when they grow older and a situation confront them, such as the bills, such as being laid off from job, what they do? They do what they know best. It out at somebody, hurt somebody because of what you are feeling. So we really need to analyze what we're doing, analyze our religious material and what it's saying to us. And if possible, ask the Father to give you guidance and wisdom on how to convey what you're reading.
Okay, so we have a parent who told us that she used the beating route. Now, what was your purpose for doing it? Now that you can look back and reflect, and now that you have a different approach looking back, did you use it as a means to correct the children, or did you use it to control them or bring them into subjection?
I used to think that I'm correcting them. But then when I sit and I look back now, is that I used to control them, because most often times that when I put lashes on them is not that okay. I beat you there and then when you did something wrong. I usually used to allow it to build up. And then when I'm really angry and you go and you slip there, that's when I put it in you.
I get a lot of it.
So all the anger, the frustration that I'm going through, it lashed out on you.
Okay.
And let me just say that our friend said that, you know, it's correction, but sometimes the parents come home and the child act out, and with the frustration of the bills and whatever issues are there, the child just get it. Therefore, you're again hurting a child for something that he or she has no control over. They didn't do. I'm not responsible for if you were laid off of the job. I'm not responsible that you weren't able to pay the bills. But then I'm feeling the blunt. I might have done something wrong, and it goes back. You didn't communicate with me verbally. You didn't talk to me about what I do. But because of your frustration of all the other issues that might seem out of your control, but you can control me. So you give me the lick. So I am being beaten. And so for me, it's more of the control. And I want to say that we can be in control or have authority over our children or provide leadership without becoming physical
One
violence.
other thing. I think often we justify beating. We say, I got lashes, but look at me, I'm fine. I'm a bank manager. I have a great job. I'm earning the best amount of money. I'm great. I'm perfect. But be honest with yourself. As you said, be honest with yourself. What did it do to you at that time? What did it do to you now that you're an adult? You can say it's okay to hit a child. They will come out fine. You don't know. Every child may not. Me and you might experience something, but I may go the positive way, I go the negative way. We can never know what a child would interpret these physical violence as. So my thing is, don't do it.
Yes, what you just said there, in fact, I wanted to throw that out because it's a very common statement we would hear, you know, I got licks and I turned out okay. So what can we say to those parents?
I think I would say to the parents, it's hard. I'm a mother of two. I'm sitting here, I'm talking, I have lashed my child. But you know what the difference is? I'm not justifying what I've done. And a lot of time when I give her a lash is when we're rushing out the house in the morning. But it's not good. And the important thing is, I usually say, I'm sorry, I should not have done that. I'm just feeling a little frustrated right now because we need to get out, you need to get school early. I'm sorry. Oftentimes we don't do that. Children need to see that we as adults, we can own up to our mistakes. We make the mistake, but we are brave enough to say, I'm sorry, I should not have done that. So they should know. They shouldn't be acting out. They shouldn't be intentionally hurting somebody. And if by chance you do that, please apologize. It's hard out there. And I'm talking, you may try one time, but you will do it again because, we, like I said, we are conditioned. It's a culture that we have inherited from way back when. I don't want to go back to history and slavery and whatever it is, but we have inherited it, and I think we need to own up to it, and we need to actively work on getting it out of our country, getting it out of our society, get it out of the lives of our children because it's damaging them. You know what it is to talk to a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, and this is how they're talking to you? No, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. They can't look you in the eye. They are timid. They are afraid. If by chance they go to school, they lost the pencil part. They prefer stay in school than to go home. No way, that should not happen to your child. In spite of a mistake your child made, they should feel free enough to come home and know, even though I've done wrong, I was careless with my purse, mommy and daddy will still accept me back. But it's not that I'm going scot-free. But there's other ways in which we can deal with that. Teach children responsibility instead of violence.
I want to say yes. We can look and I can say, oh, I turned out well. But it came with a cost. And the cost was in the present time. It costs you family time because sometimes you become withdrawn. You don't want nothing to do with this parent or this guardian that is always hitting you. It robs you of quality time with your children. It silences them. It shuts them down. They keep you out of stuff that you should be part of. you lose their confidence. They find other people to confide in, because one of the things I've discovered is that as parents, we ask for the truth. But when truth comes, how do we handle truth? How do we address truth? And so our children comfort us with lies because it's going to save me some lashes. I comfort you with a lie because that's what you prefer. Because if I come with the truth, I'm going to feel more pain. And sometimes your child is hurting, but they don't want to feel the more physical pain to come to you now because they don't know what it's going to be. So yes, you turn out well in the end, as we would say, quote unquote, but it costs. And some of those relationships sometimes are irreparable. And some of our children, they only tolerate us because of the religious belief. Our Bible says, honor your father and mother. Had it not been for the Bible, I would not want nothing to do with that man or that woman, you know, or just out of a good conscience as my mother, whatever. But sometimes people don't tell you about those costs, what it costs them. So yes, you can turn out well and become somebody, but tell us about the pain. Tell us about the emotional scars that child, how it feel. Tell us about the detachment and those sufferings. Nobody want to talk about that.
A lot of children are being groomed, and even myself, I raised in an authoritative parenting style, whereby it's a word and a blow. It's either you do it my way or you take it this way. All right? And I find, as Natasha was saying, it builds a separation. And if it's one thing I can advocate for parents, is try to use the democratic parenting style and build relationship with your children. When you build relationship now, you can actually get them to come and tell you what actually transpired in school. Rather than you have to come and ask, they start to rattle off everything. I'm a proud mother of a 19-year-old son. And to date, we have a wonderful relationship. He would come and share what happened at work. When he went with his friend, he would share. Because of what? I tried the other parenting, the democratic parenting style, and I find it's working very well. I'm not going to say that I never beat him, but now that I have knowledge, because for the lack of knowledge, my people perish. But I have knowledge now, so I know how to handle stuff. I'm presently the guardian of my nephew, and I do not administer lashes. I know, as I said earlier, the throat or the eye contact, and he gets the message. Right? And I give God praise and thanks that he don't like the throat too much. Like somebody had to give him, right? But then he gets the message.
I'm serious.
Yes, Auntie is serious.
Okay, so a lot is coming out here, and we're seeing that, you know, the physical or the violent form of discipline, the hitting, the licks, it's more a method of control. And Ms. Perry talked about the history. When we look at the slave masters, that's how they brought the slaves into subjection, by hitting and by instilling fear in them. And maybe it's something that has continued, and maybe it's something that it's in our social DNA. But we want to take a very brief break. Please stay with us, and we'll continue with this program.
No. No. Most of the times.
So let them get things right, yes, but not like bad licks.
I won't beat it. They don't have no reason that I should beat my child.
Yes. Yes, I would beat them, but not for stupid things.
Not really.
Yes, for the wrong things, to make them do it the right way.
Not really. Not really.
Yes, but not all the times.
Yes.
Mostly times.
Okay, welcome back to Step by Step. This is a parenting program brought to you by the Child Rights Alliance. And if you're now joining us, our topic this evening is beating our children. Is it correction or control? So I want to ask this question. Is licks a forgettable or unforgettable experience? I'm sure most of you here probably received some licks when you were children. So let's talk about that. Was it a forgettable or unforgettable experience?
I don't think I can get it out of my head. The number of times I get licked. It's not like I didn't deserve it, right? But Can't forget it. And I'm 31. And earlier in my younger days, when you were getting licks on your parents, you were getting severe licks. They would take the thing that is probably easy at their hand reach. Well, my father liked to cherry whip. You know, or those tamarind, the tamarind one. And, you know, I got some licks. You see my brothers get some licks. My sister get, no, I didn't see my sister get licks. I see my brothers get some licks. I get some licks. And I could name all of them. It would take the program plus the other programs to come. So I'm just going to stop right there.
Yes, anyone else?
For me, I think I remember my mom sharing one time. So I can consider as forgettable, but then I got from my grandmother. Yes, I got from my uncles, and those are some unforgettable experience. Unfortunately, I think I said earlier, these things leave permanent emotional scars that we carrying around. You see people wearing this mask on their face with a big smile, but you don't know what's going on behind that mask. If only they can remove the mask. I heard a saying once that said, hurting people are going around hurting other people. Many persons are hurting children because of the fact that they were hurt, right? They're feeling hurt or they were hurt. So that's it.
I think I can talk of experiences being beaten as though it happened yesterday or probably this morning. I remember, and I always would talk about this when it was my birthday. And I left to go to a family member to get something my mom sent me for, a few houses away from where we were living. And I stopped and I was playing with a cousin. So my mom came up the street, and don't talk about what happened to me on my birthday for doing something that children love to do, play. And there's so much more that I can talk about. So it just goes to show it's never forgettable. You cannot forget. And in some instances, you remember the pain you felt. You remember what was going through your mind. You remember what your heart was feeling at that time. And it's that imprint. It's printed on your memory. It's left there like in a corner. So when people ask questions like you asked just now, it evokes those experiences with the feelings and everything. Because as a child, it leaves a permanent imprint.
I remember a time as my father came home and I was to do a particular house chore and I didn't do it. And my father, he didn't talk. Just went straight to the bedroom, picked up the whip. And I saw him going to the bedroom. And I figured that he was going for the whip, but I still didn't stand up. The man came up with the whip. And I'm not lying here, people. This man makes a one lash. I run out the house, out the yard, straight up the road. One lash. Right? Now, I remember that, but I don't remember it hurting me physically. I remember it hurting me emotionally because I was given a task and I didn't do it. And knowing that how my parents work very hard to provide for us. So emotionally it hurt. All right. So what this licks part does for me is an emotional memory that, listen, hey, my parents, they struggle to help us get off, and I need to just do my part.
Yes.
Okay, Miss Karika, you...
Yeah,
I believe you would have had some experiences.
I know, I was beaten. I have to remember them because I find a lot of the times that I was beaten is because for my siblings, I was so emotional. I would cry like a baby, and so my mother was like, she would just beat me for crying for them. So yeah, I was beaten. How can I forget that? But yeah, I can never forget those experiences. Growing up in my house, one of my siblings was being peppered. She's in the bedroom hollering and I'm outside hollering. I wasn't being peppered, but those, I'm telling you, because those things hurt. And for me, when we all believe that, because I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, that you don't spare the rod and spoil the child. And I ask the question often, what is the rod? Because for some people, the rod is a belt. It's the tamarind whip for him. For somebody else, it's a pepper bottle. For somebody else, it's a piece of electric cord. For somebody else, it's the rolling pin. For somebody else, it's a kitchen knife. Have we defined the rod to that? We can say this is the specific tool or whatever to use. And so yes, they leave lasting impression that you can't forget it, and you will never forget it. Yes, you try to put it aside, but every now and then it comes right back. So no, I've had unforgettable experiences.
It's unforgettable. Well, that was very disgusting and unruly child. I deserve it.
You deserve whatever
I
it
never used
was.
to listen to my mom. My father used to work abroad. It was just me and my mom and my siblings. So I used to try to overcome her.
Yeah.
But she was very quiet.
But then you know when your mom send you or your parents send you to get something and then you come home, you forget it. You tell mommy I forget it. Oh, you forget it? I give you something.
Think to remember
it by. You know? So.
But I know those days, and we, you know, now that you're adults, for some of us, we have overcome it. We're not carrying the anger, and we have healed. We have forgiven our parents. But sometimes because we have overcome, it doesn't mean that we have to put our children through the same things and say because I turned out well, you can turn out well. And those are misconceptions that we need to remove, because they are children that were beaten who can't wait to grow and reach a place where
So
they
they can
just
beat
lash
back.
out, where they can beat back. You know what I've been through. And so we have got to just be careful in the beating part of just beating and feel that it's the cure for all. Beating is not the cure for all. It's not a cure for all. I think sometimes we feel that it's a cure for all. It can address every issue. The child is not doing well. They're not working at school, you beat them. They're not doing the chores at home, you beat them. You know, it's not a cure for all. So we've got to work on that.
Well, just one final question before we give our final thoughts. How do we deal with, let's say, a small child, 1 to 5, who is throwing a tantrum? How should a parent deal with that?
I believe certain things should be nipped by the root. Oftentimes we allow it to get out of control, and when it reaches to the public domain and it becomes embarrassing, then you want to beat to the extreme as though, you know, this is my first experience. When you realize that, okay, this child is the first time this child decided to do that, you need to meet to the child according to their level. Oftentimes, in the childhood experience, the early childhood course that I did, they said you usually stoop to the child, make eye contact with the child, let your tone of voice and your body language speaks for yourself. In that way, the child gets the message, so he or she would know the next time I can try that one. Children are the greatest manipulators. If they know they want something, they're going to do what they feel like doing or what they think they should do to get it. So they're going to do it.
Oftentimes, children test the limit. And sometimes we allow it to get away. You know, they come, you don't do that, lash your back. And like she said, you go to clinic or you're on the road with them, they try that stunt, and you're beating them. But one of the things we have to realize, we have to know how to deal with that. Because the 1 to 5 is the age they're observing everything.
Yes.
They're learning everything, they're grabbing everything. It's leaving an imprint on their brain. So imagine what you're doing to that child. Also, sometimes we say we're beating them because we love them. We want you to behave yourself. I want you to grow up to be a good boy or a good girl. But I love you, so I have to do it. But think about the message you're sending to them. You're sending the message, love hurts. Love is painful. When you're in love, you should expect somebody to hit you because they love you.
Domestic
Not
violence.
to talk to you or say correct you, And I have a 2-year-old also. He'll be 2 December. But sometimes you just have to allow them. They're going to kick and scream. Ignore that behavior. I usually say, when you're finished, let me know. And then we can talk about what is it you want. My daughter, sometimes she bursts into tears. When you're ready to let me know what is it you want, and I usually use the word negotiate, let me know. You gotta teach them these skills. Explain to me what you want. Mommy, I want the crayon because I feel like coloring, whatever. I'm teaching her, you need to use your words. But you have to know the appropriate age, like my colleague said. You have to know the appropriate age and what to do and when to do it.
Okay, before we give our final thoughts, because we're running out of time, the Child Rights Alliance, we have a brochure, and there's an interesting question. It says, some adults say that being hit as a child helped them to turn out okay. Would they still have turned out okay if they were not hit as a child? And there's a quote here. It says, there are people who have had all kind of bad experiences growing up who have turned out okay as adults, and nobody would say the experience was good. Often it is the way that we have dealt with the experience that turn our lives around and help them to be okay, not necessarily the experience itself. So just briefly, just give me your final thoughts, 30 seconds or less.
I just want to say, Ellen White, a popular author, said that at age 3, a child should learn perfect obedience. And like was said earlier, if you see the child behaving a certain way that probably will lead to them throwing a tantrum sometime, they should know. You need to nip it in the bud. You need to stamp your authority as a parent. Now, stamping your authority there, don't, you gotta know how to do it. That's all I'm saying. Parents, let's not let whatever is affecting us affect the way we treat our children. All right, that's all I want to say.
Yes.
For me, I think parents need to come to the place of start showing love and compassion towards our children. That is no longer visible. Some of us tell ourselves tangible things is a means of showing love. Oh, I'll buy him a phone. I'll buy her a iPad as me showing them love. But then a mere hug. I find, because parents are not showing these things, as I said earlier, relationship building, instead of we having togetherness, we having a mere separation, right? Once you have togetherness, I find the lashes will definitely diminish.
Okay, yes, briefly.
Yeah, I believe it is said that children live what they learn, and so we've got to just sometimes check to see what we have been teaching, how we have been teaching. So, and sometimes, you know, sometimes as parents we just have double standards. Say one thing, we do something else. Children are looking. Child will throw the tantrum because you're at home. You say don't touch, or don't play there now. But you're caught up watching your favorite television show or something, and the child is doing the very thing, and you allow him to go ahead and have it. But then now when somebody is there, you're trying, and then the child throws the tantrum. So we've got to be careful what we are modeling, what we are mirroring, our behaviors. Is it going hand in hand? Is our word and our talk, our walk and our talk, is it in agreement? Oftentimes it's not so. We curse, but tell the child don't curse. Double standard there. So we have to start being the example, the behaviors. We got to model it. We got to do what we're teaching our children. They must see it. And society has that responsibility to ensure adults, they say behind every bad behaved child, there are at least 2 bad behaved adults. So we've got to be careful.
Okay.
For me, I would say beating is not all. Talk to them, find out what's the problem. And if they does something that they're not supposed to do, punish them in ways that you can take away something they like. Ground them like, okay, if you're supposed to go here, you're not going to go there because you misbehave. Just avoid lashes.
I would like to say, as parent, have a purpose for your child. Have a purpose for your parenting. Know what is it you want your child to be when they're an adult. And you want them to be assertive. You want them to be bold. You want them to be respectful. You want them to be independent. You want them to be thinkers.
Yes.
Not only people that would do what others say. Think about these things. Think about what you want that child to become in the future. What you want that the role that child must play in our society. Think about all those things. Just don't think about the problem you're facing with that child now. Just don't think about that behavior that the child may have now. Think about what you want them to be, and trust me, you will find the correct positive method to deal and help that guide that child where you see them being.
Okay, in closing, let me just say, when a plant is not growing well, we try to find out what the problem is. Too much water or too little, too much sun or not enough, the state of the soil and so on. No one beats up a plant that is not growing well. We handle it gently until we can find and correct what is not right. Children deserve better treatment than plants. So, until next time, see you. Have a good night. Thanks for staying with us.
Okay.